This is CBC Compass.
This is Wednesday, February 19th. Here's what's happening now on Prince Edward Island. The end is in sight. This island couple may soon be heading home after 2 weeks quarantine on a cruise ship. We'll hear how they're doing and when they hope to be back on PEI. Weighing in on the pipeline protests, PEI's premier is among those trying to figure out how to end ongoing railway blockades. Our political reporter joins us with the very latest. And a long walk for an important cause. We'll meet an island man heading out on the famous El Camino Trail and hear why he'll be carrying an extra load on the 500-kilometer trek. Well, good evening. Thanks for joining us here on Compass. I'm Steve Bruce. Louise is away tonight. Well, after weeks trapped in their room aboard a cruise ship in Japan, an island couple is hopeful the end is finally in sight. They haven't been able to get home because of the coronavirus. More than 600 people on their ship have been infected.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
This is how Helen McKenna and her husband John have been keeping in touch with the outside world, keeping friends and family updated through Facebook videos.
We are still in our room trying to enjoy each other's company. Yay. It's a good job. We like each other.
They're among the 256 Canadians being quarantined on the Diamond Princess. They've been in their room for the past 2 weeks. Last night, they posted a video saying they haven't been tested for coronavirus and are not showing any symptoms, but more than 40 other Canadians aboard the ship have tested positive. Now, hundreds of passengers are being let off the ship today, but not the Canadians. The two islanders say they were initially told the plane back to Canada would be heading out today, but as of last night,
the captain has just announced that our Canadian flight now is not coming until Friday. So that's more days here. They just keep moving the finish line just a little bit further away.
McKenna says they've been told they'll be screened no fewer than 3 times before their plane departs. And once they arrive in Canada, they'll be held under another 2-week quarantine in Cornwall, Ontario. They're hoping they'll finally be allowed to return home to PEI by March 6th or 7th. Well, this hour, Premier Dennis King is among Canadian premiers scheduled to be on a call to figure out what's needed to end an ongoing rail blockade. That blockade, of course, started 2 weeks ago and was sparked by the hereditary chiefs of the Wet'suwet'en First Nation in BC and their opposition to a proposed pipeline. Now, Kerry Campbell joins us live with the latest on this. So, Kerry, first tell us what you know about this call that includes the Premier.
Well, Steve, the call was scheduled to start at 5 o'clock Atlantic and expected to last anywhere from 30 to 90 minutes. As far as we know, the premiers are still talking now. It was Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe who set this up as the chair of the Council of the Federation. That's the group that includes all Canadian premiers. Now, Dennis King didn't want to do an interview before the call. We did get a statement from his office, though, that said King hopes this leads to a quick resolution to the situation and a purposeful path forward. The statement also referenced King's call with the Prime Minister about this on Monday after we saw those demonstrations near the Confederation Bridge. So we'll wait to hear from Dennis King and the rest of the premiers after this call is completed.
And Kerry, who else has been weighing in on this issue?
Well, in Ottawa today, everyone here in PEI, in terms of politicians, Peter Bevan-Baker put out a statement on this issue. Today I asked him what he thought PEI's contribution to this debate might be. Bevan-Baker said this is not about a single pipeline. He said instead it's happening because there have not been meaningful steps towards reconciliation in Canada. In terms of PEI's role in this, he said he hopes Dennis King is a voice of reason, a voice of calm, as Bevan-Baker referenced what he called dog whistle politics, statements from federal conservative politicians, which he said used inflammatory language to describe protesters. Have a listen.
We do not need to be further inflaming things by using language which is not helpful to reconciliation. Reconciliation is going to be hard. It's going to be extremely hard. But we cannot back away from these discussions anymore because we're going to, again, have things that we're dealing with right now with the blockades across the country. This is going to keep happening unless we have those proper conversations.
Steve, something else in a statement from the Premier's office. It says the province is continuing to assess the potential impacts from the rail disruption. Of course, we've already been hearing about the effects on agriculture, whether it's moving seed potatoes across the country or delivering propane for PEI poultry barns. Whatever else comes from this call with the Premiers, expect Dennis King and the rest of the Premiers to put more pressure on Ottawa to find some kind of resolution to get those trains running again.
All right, Kerry, we'll keep following this one. That's Kerry Campbell reporting live for us tonight. All right, Jay here now with a first look at weather. And sounds like if you haven't yet shoveled away all that slushy snow from overnight, you might be running out of time.
Yeah, it could be a little bit icy as we get into the next few hours. The temperature's already falling down to around or below the freezing mark. Things are going to ice up pretty quickly as that temperature rapidly falls tonight. And let's just say it's going to be a very different kind of day tomorrow. No mild temperatures in the forecast. Speaking of that slushy mess, the forecast was for most of PEI between 5 to 10 centimeters of slushy accumulation for all but up west, where those amounts were going to be in the 10 to 15 centimeter range. You can see that over 11 centimeters in Foxley River. Seeing through social media some amounts near 15 or around 15 centimeters, even further up west. But for most areas, comfortably in between that 5 to 10 centimeter range as forecasted. Didn't leave roads too rough this morning, but they were slushy. And with the melting, you were dealing with some slick conditions. And we did have a few hours of light freezing rain before switching over to rain in some areas. Temperatures now, though, at or below the freezing mark, and that is because the winds are becoming more west to northwesterly, and they're quite brisk as well. We'll see gusts over 50 km this evening, just as the risk of flurries tapers off. We're going to watch for those winds to be in the 25 to 50 km range overnight, becoming more northwesterly, and that's going to see those temperatures plummeting. So any standing water from the slush and the melt today will begin to ice up. So watch yourself on the sidewalks, your walkways, your front steps, and certainly on the roads and sidewalks tomorrow morning, getting the kids to school or getting yourself off to work. And it is going to be very cold, kind of cold where it feels into the mid-20s overnight into tomorrow morning, and around or below -20 with the wind chill tomorrow afternoon. Be sure to cover up the extremities. Risk of frostbite when we're talking about temperatures this cold. Steve? All right, thanks, Jay. Well, it's no secret some islanders are having problems getting the mental health services they need here on the island. Well, tonight, Health PEI says it's having an issue too. People aren't showing up for their appointments. Travis Kingdon has more on that.
Health PEI says between 30 and 40% of appointments for mental health services in the province are missed. And all those people not showing up put stress on a system that's already stretched. Those appointments are for services like individual counseling and therapy sessions at healthcare locations across the province. And Health PEI say when people don't show up, it has an impact on the system and other islanders.
There's a lot of pressure on the system, and we do have wait lists, and anytime an appointment is missed, then that's an opportunity for somebody else who could have made that appointment to come in and get service. I do think that the no-show rate does impact services.
Health PEI says it's working on ways to make sure that people know about their appointments, contacting them by email or text beforehand instead of just using a phone call. But Trish Altus, the opposition health critic, says the province should be looking at why people are missing those appointments and not pointing the finger.
When we have people who are experiencing addictions issues and challenges with mental health, the last thing we need to do is to point the finger back and blame as they try their very best to navigate through the process as they are trying to address their issues. We need to support islanders who are facing those challenges.
Now, Health PEI says that some of those services are available online, and in some cases they can come to the people's homes. Now, Health PEI says it's looking at expanding those options to combat missed appointments in the future. Travis Kingdon, CBC News, Charlottetown.
A Summerside woman has been airlifted to a Halifax hospital after an ATV crash. It happened on Sunday in Darnley. The woman was sent to the Prince County Hospital before being moved off island. She is in serious but stable condition, and police are still investigating what caused the crash. And there were traffic problems on Brackley Point Road in Charlottetown today. A vehicle hit a power pole and police had to reroute traffic on one side of the road. Maritime Electric had to fix some of the damage. Police thought the repairs could take several hours, and the driver of the vehicle was not seriously hurt. Charlottetown police are looking for the people in this security video that they say are spray painting cars. Just take a look at the left side of the screen here. It happened overnight Saturday, just after midnight on Lawndale Court in Sherwood. One car was damaged. This is security camera video. If you know anything about what did happen, police want you to contact them or Crime Stoppers. The city of Summerside is buying a new generator for St. Eleanor's Community Centre and Fire Hall. The plan is for the community centre to become the city's primary emergency station. The location can hold about 200 people. A Summerside councillor says the decision to create an emergency shelter came after post-tropical storm Dorian.
Main reason, really, we were looking for a safe place for emergency measures issues that arise. The safety of our residents is paramount when it comes to issues like Dorian weather events. So we determined that the St. Eleanor's Fire Hall was the best location based on the number of factors.
The centre was chosen because of its accessibility. The generator will cost around $86,000 and construction is set to start in April. Well, an island man is planning a big trip to hike almost 500 kilometers for charity. He'll be walking the famous El Camino Trail in Europe starting on Easter weekend. And if that wasn't enough of a challenge, he'll be carrying an extra load. Just have a look at this.
Hi, I'm Dr. Adams. My long-term goal on Good Friday, I'm leaving for Europe, Spain to be exactly, the famous El Camino de Santiago Trail. I'm going to be traveling 300 miles, but I'm not just going to travel it myself. I got myself a little companion that I'm going to be carrying. So this cross weighs about 50 pounds, and we're going to be carrying it those 300 miles. The El Camino Trail is a path that was taken thousands and thousands of years back in the time of Christ. It doesn't matter your denomination, your faith, it's more about reaching a new level of spiritual guidance. I got this idea in the middle of the night. I woke up and I had a dream and everything was laid out. And what I'm also going to be carrying with it is these crosses. So these crosses will be hanging, and what these represent are when people donate to the Suicide Prevention Awareness Program that I'm doing, the fundraiser, all the prayers and the names and the families that have been affected by suicide, I want to bring those to the trail as well as this larger cross. How you doing, man? Beautiful dog. Why? Hi. We're taking it on a trail. Fundraising. Cross to Bear is everybody with mental illness has some aspect of their life that they have to bear. So this is symbolic of the mental anguish that people go through. Now, at the end of the 300-mile trek, I get to put this down, but at the same time, there's a lot of people out there that don't. So what I'm hoping is that this can be shared to all 153,000 people on PEI, so that if anybody if they're struggling and need that moment, if they can reflect on this, then I've done my job.
And all the best to Dr. Adams as he heads out on his trek. Well, much more still to come on Compass tonight before 7 o'clock, including what the ongoing railway blockades could mean for farmers on PEI and across the country. The president of the Canadian Federation of Agriculture joins me for a chat. We'll also have the very latest on the pipeline protests and the efforts to resolve the issue in Ottawa. And if you're missing Louise tonight, fear not, she's hosting this evening's annual Sport PEI Awards, and she'll have a tee-up for us with the organization's executive director. Stick around. All right, Jay here with a full look at the forecast. And I know it's about -1 out there right now. We could just lock that temperature in for the rest of the week. I wouldn't complain.
I can't believe we're hoping for -1. Like, we're locking that in. We're not going for 10, 20 degrees above the freezing mark.
When we're looking at -20, -25 with the wind chill tomorrow?
Yeah, and that's exactly the range we're going to see. Mid-20s through the overnight hours into early tomorrow morning, and likely feeling around or below -20 even during the afternoon. We'll take a look at our live shot into Charlottetown this hour. Lovely to see a little bit of sunshine peeking above the horizon there. Just wait till we roll those clocks ahead 1 hour. That's going to be a dramatic change in terms of our daylight hours later in the day. All right, let's take a look now at our temperatures across the Maritimes, because after below 10 centimeters for most areas, but still, it was a slushy accumulation. So we had a lot of slush. We had pretty mild temperatures, certainly through the first half of the day today. That means a lot of meltwater, a lot of wet surfaces, a lot of standing water in the form of puddles. That means ice patches really forming this evening, and we can expect slick conditions tomorrow morning. So for the morning commute, even just leaving the house, walking down the front steps, you may want to put some de-icer down tonight just ahead of that, as things will freeze up quickly enough that not all of that water will have a chance to clear off of the harder surfaces through our infrastructure. So it is already starting to get quite cold in parts of northern New Brunswick, -7 in Bathurst, -11 in Edmundston. We're going to be looking at temperatures well below that here on PEI, and we're going to stay that way through the day tomorrow. Even during the warmest part of the day, we will be looking at temperatures in the mid-teens for afternoon highs. There's a look at our temperatures this hour across the island. Now as cold as -4 up at our North Cape reporting station, -2 in Summerside, -1 East Point as we look back to Charlottetown. Winds out of the west to northwest at the moment. We're seeing sustained winds between 30 to near 40, gusts over 50. And we're likely going to see those winds in that range through much of the overnight hours tonight. More of a northwesterly wind, and that will be ushering in some Arctic air. That Arctic air will be in place through Friday. We're back to seasonal values Saturday, and some milder weather will return Sunday and Monday. So it's only 2 days of a cold spell, but it is going to be a bitterly cold 2 days, and really the worst of it will be with that wind chill tomorrow. Pretty quiet conditions looking at the satellite and the radar picture. We are looking at likely some scattered flurries across PEI this hour. We're not really seeing that on the radar because a lot of this will be low-level snow that is falling. Our radar imagery comes out of New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, sometimes overshoots some of that low-level flurry activity, but it won't amount to too much tonight. The winds, though, I've got the isobars, those white lines up on the weather map here. The closer they're packed in together, the stronger the winds. And you can see, even through the overnight hours, still looking at some pretty robust winds. Tomorrow morning, the lines start to spread apart a little bit. That is an indication that the winds will be easing. But even through the afternoon, we're still looking at 20 to 40K winds. And that's going to produce a wind chill value with temperatures as cold as they are going to be at or below -20 through much of the afternoon. And a slight risk of some onshore flurries, eastern PEI up towards the North Shore. Otherwise, a mix of sun and cloud for most areas. Towards the North Shore, you may see a few cloudier conditions, though, just with those cold winds coming in off of the water. Temperatures between -16 and -18 through the overnight hours tonight. May dip a little bit further, though, early tomorrow morning, certainly for inland areas. Temperatures between -14 and -15 tomorrow afternoon. That's it for a daytime high, feeling at or below -20. Central eastern PEI, similar story, just a few passing clouds tonight, maybe a bit cloudier up towards the North Shore, where you do have that risk of a few onshore flurries through the afternoon, but temperatures well below where they should be this late into February. So it is going to be breezy, making -14, feel at or below -20. Not much of an improvement, but lighter winds and a bit more sunshine to help us out on Friday. Back to a seasonal value for Saturday, and we'll be at or above the freezing mark into next week. So just a 2-day cold spell. Here's a quick look at your temperatures across the country as we take a look at those national temperatures in a moment. There we go. We've got them. All right, your national temperature map now. And now let's go to our photo of the day. Roma Collette sending in this beautiful shot. Got a couple of mallards there. This was taken last week.
French River.
Thank you. Taken in the French River. Thank you so much. Couldn't read that there. Beautiful shot. Hard to tell if it's the French River when it zoomed in that close on the duck. So I appreciate the help there.
Those are definitely French River ducks.
French River ducks, yes. All right, get us your photos. Compass@cbc.ca, or you can head to our website for details on how you can share those photos, cbc.ca/PEI.
All right, thanks, Jay. We'll see you again before the end of the show. Well, coming up next here on Compass, the latest on the pipeline protests and what ongoing railway blockades could mean for farmers here on PEI and across the country. The head of the Canadian Federation of Agriculture joins me after the break. Stick around for that.
Thursday on the show, cyberbullying, sexting, online gaming. These are all things parents and caregivers may be facing with young people in their lives. But what's the best way to make sure that your kids are safe? A new site created by the provincial government is designed to help.
With hundreds of layoffs at CN and VIA announced today, the Prime Minister came under fire by opposition parties and premiers for failing to end rail blockades. Federal Conservatives are demanding police intervention on protests now, but Justin Trudeau says right now that would do more harm than good.
If we were to take the forceful proposals by the Conservatives, we would actually extend the challenges faced by the Canadian economy by many months and possibly years.
Enforcing the rule of law is his duty, and it's an inherent act of peace. Force. How long is he going to let this continue for? A week? A month? A year? Forever?
Rail traffic came to a grinding halt 2 weeks ago after several Mohawks set up camp near their tracks next to their territory in southeastern Ontario. They insist they won't budge until RCMP move out of Wet'suwet'en territory in BC. The territory's hereditary chiefs have not yet agreed to meet with the Trudeau government. Now, these railway line blockades are causing some big concerns for many Canadian farmers, including those here on PEI. The Canadian Federation of Agriculture put out a press release yesterday on the issue, and the Federation's president is island farmer Mary Robinson. She joins me now. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start with the situation here on PEI. If the trains aren't running, what does that mean for island farmers?
So island farmers rely on a lot of products coming to island by a combination of rail and truck. And we know we already are facing a trucker shortage. And with the blockades that are happening with CN, it means none of the trains are running. So when they do come back on, hopefully soon, there'll be quite a backlog to deal with. So what we're seeing not coming to the island now would be predominantly the big thing would be propane, because all of our chicken farmers more or less rely on propane to heat poultry barns. And if poultry barns aren't heated, the animals will perish.
Have we seen that happen before?
When we had the CN rail strike last fall, that lasted 8 days, and we got to the point where propane suppliers, I understand, were rationing propane to different farmers. There was a higher demand at that point because we were also drawing down grain as we were harvesting it. So we didn't get to the point where we ran out of propane, and hopefully we will not in this situation.
If we did get to that point, then what? What's the solution?
Well, the outcome will be obviously quite an animal welfare issue, and I certainly hope we don't get to that point, and we won't know what that looks like until we've gone through it, I don't think.
I know there's some issues as we look to growing season with seed potatoes and transporting them across the country. What are you hearing?
So what we have at this time of the year, what happens on farm, a big part of time is spent getting ready to put the crop in the ground in spring. And that would mean lining up your seed, lining up your fertilizer, all of those components that are required to plant a crop. And without rails running, it means that soon when we would normally begin to receive seed shipments here in PEI, we won't be. And fertilizer that we would normally see come in by rail to Sussex, that will not be. So this will cause a lot of heartache and a lot of financial duress. And those days that are lost, we won't get them back. And we're seeing across the country all kinds of sectors impacted by this. Our pork production, about 70% of our pork production is exported, and that goes to customers by rail predominantly. So that means that that product is not moving. We only have so much capacity to store finished product, and you can't tell a farrowing sow to stop. The birth cycle is the birth cycle. So some of these systems that are in place, they just go on regardless of what happens with the blockade. We know in Vancouver, when we began this blockage, we had about 40 vessels in port waiting to be loaded, and now we're up over 48, I understand. And demurrage costs, which is the equivalent for you or I to call a taxi and have the taxi wait outside our house and the meter's running. So when you book a vessel and the vessel comes to port, their meter is running, but it's costing, in excess of $30,000 a day. And those charges end up going back to the farmer. We also know that ethanol plants have stopped receiving grain because they're unable to ship their finished product to market. We know that mushroom growers rely on straw that comes from the west by rail. So it's impacting many commodities.
And I know you said in your press release yesterday that you want to see this issue resolved as quickly as possible. How so, though?
Well, we're farmers, and we stick to what we know and what we do well. And we just implore government to do what they can to step up, show some real federal leadership here, and resolve the situation. It's their area of expertise, not mine. We certainly respect First Nations' right to express their opinion, and we don't want to interfere with that. We have no direct connection with the conflict. We're really just the innocent bystanders, and we need to see resolution. We need to see business back to normal.
If you're talking the situation for island farmers in particular, how urgently does there need to be a resolution? I mean, if this continued on for weeks or months, then what?
Well, I think the big urgent unknown would be poultry barns and how we're going to heat those and how long the propane supply will last. I can't answer that question. It'd be a great question for someone in the propane industry. But that would be, I think, for sure the first impact would be seeing animals perish in barns because they're unheated.
All right, we'll leave it there for today. We'll keep following this issue. Appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you.
Well, the Surrey Lions Club is looking for some new members, and just ahead, a few Lions will join Jay to talk about the information night they're hosting next week and some of the work they do in the Surrey area. Stick around for that story and more. Well, you've surely noticed that Louise is away tonight, but she is still on the job, sort of anyway. She's co-hosting the annual Sport PEI Awards tonight at the Florence Simmons Performance Hall at Holland College. So Louise caught up with the executive director of Sport PEI, Gemma Keown, earlier today. Tell us a bit more about this year's awards. Have a look.
So tonight's the big night, the 46th Annual Awards. Tell us a little bit about what people can expect.
Well, it's our biggest night of the year, of course. And, you know, it's just a great opportunity to recognize the successes our island athletes and our coaches and officials have had. I mean, we're a small province, but we, you know, pack a good little punch at a national and international level. So it's a really great night for celebration.
So tell me a little bit, I know we don't want to give anything away, how many awards will be handed out and what are some of the categories? Just give the audience a little taste.
Sure. We have about 18 awards that we're giving out. So we have categories for our athletes in the junior, senior, and intercollegiate levels for both male and female. We also recognize our coaches and our officials. And we have a volunteer award as well. We have builder awards for our president award. Our sport organization of the year is our premier's award. So we have quite a variety from organizational to athlete to a builder. And it's a great night because all those things are important to make the sport a success. And it's a great opportunity for us.
How hard is it for you to choose the winners of these awards?
Well, our board does the selection, and let me tell you, they have their hands full when we send all the nominations their way for review. It's just so hard. I mean, we have some great athletes and coaches and officials to select from, and it's also really difficult because, you know, it's a variety of sports. You know, we have, if you look at our finalists and our award winners for tonight, they cover a gamut of sports, and so it's hard to make those comparisons to make the selection, which is why for the board it's so important to make even the 3 finalist selections. Those are just as important as selecting the winners. So it is a tough job, and you know what, but they have a lot of fun with it too, because it's a great reminder of how much success we've had as an island.
And tell me what it means to the athletes on PEI to hear their name being called in to be recognized.
I'd like to think it's pretty special for them, you know, especially for our athletes that often have to travel and live out of province to compete. And those are great mentors and people to look up to. And when we have them here on the island and just to strive for, it's fantastic.
Yeah, mentorship's hugely important in sport, isn't it?
It's fantastic. You know, we need to know that there's never a glass ceiling. Like keep punching through, and we can be at the top like everybody else.
Good luck tonight and have fun.
Thanks, and thanks for you to come co-host. We're looking forward to that too.
Me too.
Well, the Surrey Lions Club is looking for some new members to join their den. A recruitment information night is being held next week. So if you are thinking about it, you'll have a chance to get some more details. Jay got the where and when for us earlier today.
Well, the Surrey Lions are looking for volunteers, looking for members. I shouldn't say volunteers, although volunteering is a big part of this organization, right?
Absolutely, and we're a great group of volunteers, and we do a lot of work for our community and a lot of organizations outside of our community too, so we're looking for some new members.
Well, I know we crossed paths during the Feed a Family campaign, big time with the outreach in the Surrey area, Eastern PEI through Surrey Lions, but give me a few examples of some of the community outreach that your organization does.
Well, we do a lot for our local hospital, the Eastern Kings Health Foundation, Surrey Hospital, the QEH, the IWK in Halifax, a lot of healthcare charities. You know, we provide support for people who are traveling for healthcare. Just a lot of great initiatives well supported by our community.
And looking for new members, we have, can I get your name?
Jim Graham.
Jim, you're one of the newest Lions, right?
Yes, I just finished my first year.
Okay, so now a full Lion, not a Cub, right?
That's right.
Okay,
yeah.
So tell me a bit about your experience joining the Lions in Surrey.
Well, it was Paul, the gentleman beside me here, was my neighbor and said, how would you like to come out? And I decided to come out and go to the 3 introduction meetings and then to join. And it's a super group of guys that have helped me out in a new community and drive me forward into the future and do a lot for our community. And
well, for folks that may be new to PEI or new to the Surrey area, is a great way to make those connections. And the organization, not just for Lions, Lionesses as well, right?
That's right. We just had 3 women join our club within the last 2 months, and we're all inclusive.
So tell me a bit about Wednesday at the Legion, Surrey Legion. You folks will be having an information session and helping to recruit some new members.
That's exactly right. We'll be having presentations downstairs, and we're hoping that people will show up. We don't expect people to be asked. We like, if anybody wants to come, they can come.
All right, what's the time this is getting underway?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock, so there'll be a bar. There's going to be some food, actually Surrey sauces, right?
Correct.
All right, we'll give the business a quick plug here, but you're going to be able to try some really awesome sauces as well and meet some great folks and find out how you can help your community and help with some networking if you're new to the area as well. So this is going to be the Legion next Wednesday, and if I wanted to find out more information online, where would I do that?
You can always find us on Facebook, Surrey Legion, and our Surrey Lions Club. Sorry, you can find us on Facebook, and we're getting a lot of hits. We have our information night posted, and we look forward to seeing a lot of people out.
All right, so next Wednesday, the 26th, be sure to stop by the Surrey Legion to find out more about joining the Surrey Lions.
All right, good stuff, guys. And if you'd like to be on our community segment, you can get in touch with us here at CBC PEI. You can call us at 629-6480 or email compass@cbc.ca. 500 passengers who tested negative for the coronavirus today left the cruise ship quarantined in Japan. And as we told you earlier, on Friday, Canadians who don't have the virus will head home on a plane chartered by Ottawa. The exact number is still to be determined, but it is the biggest cluster of coronavirus cases outside mainland China. And some health experts say the quarantine is making the problem worse, not better. Sasha Petrusik has more.
Their time in quarantine done, they streamed from the cruise liner. Passengers who managed to test negative for the coronavirus after 2 weeks of sharing a ship with it. "I'm just relieved," said one man, glad to be walking away. Others sped off in taxis and buses. On board, even today, the number of infected continues to grow by the dozens, as does the fear of catching the disease, says Canadian Jennifer Lee.
Yeah, a lot of people will think, imagining they're getting sick. Yes, that's what happened. And I heard that some people crying all night and some people are angry.
The very idea of locking up so many people after finding just one case, quarantining the sick with the healthy, has been a controversial one. Japanese authorities call it necessary, but many experts say it's created an uncontrolled breeding ground. Infection control specialist Intaro Kiwata, a veteran of Ebola and SARS and cholera outbreaks, snuck onto the ship to see for himself.
But inside Princess Diamond, I was so scared. I was so scared of getting COVID-19 because there was no way to tell where the virus is.
Kiwata says that's why the number of those infected on board jumped from 1 to more than 600 in 2 weeks. There's also been confusion over testing. Yesterday, Canadian Greg Yerex was told he had the disease, while his wife Rose did not.
Point at Rose and said negative.
Today, it turns out the officials were wrong. She also has the virus, and both of them will soon be transferred to a Japanese hospital, missing the Canadian government airlift.
At least we're together.
Yeah, I'm not alone now, but it's not the way I wanted it to be.
Most Canadians plan to be on Ottawa's charter flight home, set to get out of here within 24 hours. The plane itself is sitting nearby at Tokyo's Haneda Airport. Canadians will be bussed over from the ship, then flown to Trenton, Ontario, where another period of quarantine awaits. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Yokohama.
The children of an Ottawa multimillionaire are trying to have his new marriage annulled. They say their 91-year-old father just doesn't have the mental capacity to marry. But he disagrees and says he wants to be with his new wife. CBC's Jennifer Chevalier has the story.
Joe Overfelt's property empire is worth about $27 million. But he lives alone in a 2-bedroom apartment. He says he'd like to live in the same house as his new wife.
Well, a woman that takes care of me, somebody who has a heart.
After years of running a successful property business, his children say the 91-year-old's mental abilities started to decline. In their legal role as their father's power of attorney, they started managing the business as well as his personal finances. But Overfelt says he's not incapacitated and wants to be able to make his own decisions. He says he got married to a 55-year-old woman he met through a friend to try to revoke and reassign the power of attorney to her.
I saw this was one way I could get the PRA back, but ever since then, it has changed. You know, I love her.
His new wife, Rashida Yamuri, could now inherit a third of his fortune. The children say she's motivated by financial gain. She didn't want to appear on camera, but told CBC she didn't marry Overfelt for money, but to improve his quality of life.
Rashida has a, very warm heart. You know, why don't I just marry Joe and see if I could help?
The question the court has yet to rule on is, did Overfelt have the mental capacity to get married? 3 professional capacity assessments have been done. 2 found he was incapable of managing his property or personal care. But according to his lawyer, that doesn't mean he didn't meet the legal bar to get married.
The threshold to marry is extremely low in Ontario, and power of attorney or not, they are going to have to satisfy a court that he did not have the understanding, and it's a very low understanding of what he was doing when he married.
The couple say Overfelt's children have prevented them from moving in together, and right now they're only permitted to visit each other for 90 minutes in the evening. In legal documents, Overfelt's children deny they've separated the couple and say they restrict visitors to help their father's sleep and treatment schedule. They say they love their father and want to be able to take care of him. The court has not yet ruled on the case. Jennifer Chevalier, CBC News, Ottawa.
A train derailed this morning in northwestern Ontario, and the big concern is leaking crude oil. About 30 rail cars derailed. CN Rail says no oil has entered any waterways. There's no fire and no injuries reported. Emergency responders have asked nearby residents to evacuate. Crews are on the scene investigating the derailment. Well, for the first time in 8 years, a passenger jet landed in Aleppo, Syria. The domestic flight was carrying government officials and journalists. It comes as Russian-backed government forces intensified a campaign to recapture the last of the rebel-held territory in the region. The fighting has triggered the biggest single wave of displacement in the 9-year war. Briar Stewart reports.
Even in Syria, where millions have been fleeing war for nearly a decade, the scale of what's happening now is catastrophic. We fled because there was more shelling, he says. We came here, but there was even more shelling. Now we don't know where to go next. Since December, 900,000 people have been displaced by the escalating violence in Idlib. It's where the Syrian regime, backed by Russian air power, is trying to take out the remaining opposition forces. And today, Turkey warned that if the military advances don't stop, it will launch its own. The Idlib offensive is only a matter of time, said the Turkish president today, signaling the fighting could soon get even worse. Officials say that nearly 300 civilians were killed in attacks this year, including 3 in this airstrike yesterday. Some of those victims were treated by Dr. Mohammed Abrash, a surgeon working at a hospital nearby.
The situation is going worse and worse, and there is no way to go, and where to be displaced.
And the frigid temperatures are making it all the more dangerous. The UN says as many as 50,000 people are sheltered out in the open and under trees, while others huddle in tents. There are daily reports of children dying.
Imagine the grief of a parent who escaped a war zone with their child, only to watch that child freeze to death.
Today there were calls from UN officials to end the hostilities in Idlib, but Dr. Abrash says no one on the ground believes that will make any difference.
They just sitting on the chairs, having their lunch, talking, giving their statements. So the United Nations is doing nothing for us.
He says instead Syrians weary from years of war are running out of safe places to go. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
A controversial crime-fighting social network is catching on in the U.S. It allows people to share surveillance video with their local police, no warrant required. And now, in a Canadian first, the mayor of Windsor, Ontario, wants his city to join in. Thomas Degla reports.
It's a great town.
A police veteran in Livonia, Michigan, Captain Ron Tagg has had eyes on these streets for 32 years. But never before could he rely on so many eyes in so many places.
Sometimes they're in areas where you might not expect them.
In this Detroit suburb and across the U.S., more and more homeowners are lending their front porch to the fight against crime. With this gadget, a doorbell camera. It's connected to the internet and can provide police with video evidence, typically without a warrant.
We're looking at a map of our city.
If there's a crime, Captain Tagg can request homeowner video or respond to activity that locals flag as suspicious. All this with an app called Neighbors.
Now, when something happens, you can be one of the first to know.
Owned by Amazon and pitching itself as the new neighborhood watch.
It has magnified, obviously, and accelerated on how we are able to identify suspects.
Take this video showing a suspect examining a toolbox in someone's pickup truck after a string of attempted car break-ins. He was identified within minutes, thanks to video from Ali Shaheen.
If it wasn't for the camera, maybe he would open up the toolbox and clear it out. I'm glad I did it.
Shaheen installed 3 of those cameras on his property, and they capture a lot. The camera detects motion and is supposed to start recording as soon as someone approaches the front door. It's also meant to act as a deterrent by being in full view as someone approaches the home. Across the U.S., hundreds of police agencies have signed deals with the Amazon subsidiary to help crowdsource crime fighting. And Ontario could be next. Just across the Detroit River, Windsor is aiming to be the first Canadian city to sign up.
There's been no consultation, and
That worries big tech watchers like Professor Bonnie Stewart, concerned about handing police data to a multinational corporation and inching ever closer to intrusive surveillance.
once we have opened the curtains in that sense, we can't close them. And we may never be able to close them again. It becomes normal. People become accustomed to being surveilled at every level.
Windsor Mayor Drew Dilkins doesn't share that unease as he looks to fight his city's addiction-fueled rise in crime.
I don't want a big brother state, but I want to make sure that my police service can respond to crime efficiently, effectively, and with all the modern tools available to them.
So on Windsor's streets, there could soon be more watchful eyes than ever. For some, that's better security at a low cost. For others, it means lost privacy, a price they're not willing to pay. Thomas Dagg, CBC News, Windsor, Ontario.
As we go to break, a look at how the day played out on the markets. The dollar jumped slightly to just over 75.5 cents U.S. The TSX grew as well, 67 points. The Dow's up tonight, nearly 116 points. Oil jumped $1.20 a barrel, and gold up as well, $8.20 an ounce. Well, a couple in Germany are brightening up their city and making it a better place for people who use wheelchairs. They make ramps made out of Lego blocks. Each custom-built ramp is handmade and requires thousands of the little blocks. The couple dedicates their spare time to it, often investing 2 or 3 hours a day to building the ramps. So far, they've completed 12 of them. Wow.
That's amazing.
Really, man. And, you know, as long as Legos are involved, I'm sure we could convince our kids to help them ramp up production.
Ramp up production. There you go. I would like to see, you know what? That would tie up the entire Lego collection, which becomes a bit of a hazard.
Yeah, we don't have enough at home.
I'm trying to tidy up at night. I do not like stepping on a piece of Lego. But I will say, when you get them all in together like that, it's remarkably hard to take intensive Lego creations apart. And I can see how that would actually be pretty cool to see.
Big time.
But useful and last a long time. They're indestructible.
It sounds like tomorrow, Friday, might be good days to stay inside with some Legos.
Yeah, a good Lego day tomorrow. It is going to be a chilly one, certainly tomorrow morning. And with all of the freezing rain we had this morning, then the rain after we had that slushy, wet snow accumulating on the roads. We have a lot of wet surfaces, standing water. This is where the temperature is going to sit at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. May actually dip a degree further by 8 o'clock in the morning. And northwest winds, 25 to 40 kilometers per hour. We're going to make that feel around the mid to minus 20s to high minus 20s with the wind chill. So it's the kind of day where the kids are going to need to cover up the extremities. That's the ears, the fingers. So you make sure the hats, the toques, the mitts, all of the extra gear there for recess tomorrow. It is going to be a chilly one for that walk to school as well, or that wait on a bus. Minus 15 for the noon hour, and we'll top out anywhere from minus 13 to minus 15 for the range of daytime highs across the island. Those winds easing through the afternoon, but still brisk enough that it'll likely feel around or below minus 20. We'll be cold again Friday, not as windy, not as bad of a wind chill.
Warmer on the weekend, though. Warmer
on the weekend.
All right, we'll look forward to that. Louise hosting the Sport PEI Awards. She's back here tomorrow. In the meantime, have a great night.